how's it going? Matthew Bailey Media here, and welcome back to another movie review. This time is going to be on a movie that I was a little nervous about because it's it's the first time Universal and DreamWorks decided to do this, basically following in Disney's footsteps of creating live action adaptations of their animated films. And if you can't already guess already, this is my review on the live action adaptation of How to Train Your Dragon. That's right. It's only been like what, 15 years since the original live action How to Train Your Dragon, or not live action. It's been 15 years since the original animated How to Train Your Dragon came out, and I was 11 when that movie came out. Can you believe it? I was 11 years old. I think in like 6th grade when the movie came, either 5th or 6th grade when this movie came out. And now with DreamWorks having their first ever live action adaptation of the movie, and they already greenlit the live action sequel to the animated sequel, so we'll see how that goes. Now the only difference though is that they're technically only waiting 2 years to release the live action sequel and not 4 years to release the sequel like they did with the original animated film, because the original animated film came out like 4 years later in 2014, and then 5 years later we got the third movie. So we'll see how well this whole thing plays out. But with the live action How to Train Your Dragon movie, I will say, even though it's basically, there's no other way to sugarcoat this, but it's basically a shot for shot remake of the original. Yet the only difference, there's two major differences with the live action version over the animated one. The first major difference is that the budget to make this live action movie is actually $15 million less than what the original cost, because the original movie cost $165 million to make, whereas this live action movie only cost $150 million. So in reality, the movie only needs to make at least $300 million in order to break even, in my opinion, and actually make a profit. So if it gets over 300 million, then it's already a success. Now, I think the first movie made around $495 million back in 2010. So if it can beat out its original counterpart in the worldwide box office, then that would be a huge victory for Universal. And it can kind of show Disney that they really should not mess with the source material that much. I mean, they can add stuff, but just not shove a bunch of politics down people's throats when making the live action adaptations, which is what they have unfortunately been doing a lot in some of their live action remakes. The biggest example is, of course, Snow White. As some people would prefer to her, be like a Lord Farquaad knockoff. I gotta admit that if you haven't seen my video that I made a few months ago with where I reacted to the hate comments song for the Snow White movie, there was the one line where they said, "Why is Lord Farquaad playing her?" Because the way they made her haircut. But again, we're not talking about Disney. We're talking about Universal and How to Train Your Dragon. So I will say, this movie, because it's a shot-for-shot remake and they didn't really add anything new, but the second major difference, besides the budget being lower than the original, is that somehow, even though the movie's cheaper to make than the original animated movie, this movie is actually 30 minutes longer than the original animated film. The original movie was I think an hour and 33 minutes long, whereas the live action one is 2 hours and 5 minutes to be precise. And to be fair, that's 32 minutes longer somehow, but they must have still had at least 30 minutes worth of extra footage. I guess they really dragged out some of the original scenes or whatever to make them feel longer, which is why we had a longer movie. But I will say, Mason Thames, who plays Hiccup in this movie, the only movie I know him from though is The Black Phone. Excuse me. Is The Black Phone. Now, I didn't see that movie in theaters, but I did watch it on streaming afterwards, and or on DVD, I should say. And I will say, he really does look like the character. Now, one thing though that I kept hearing so many people freak out about is that they didn't cast a girl who looked like Astrid at all, especially with the way they made her look. Like, she didn't have the blonde hair or whatever, which really is something that they, again, just because she doesn't have the blonde hair doesn't mean she can't portray the character. I mean, sure, her skin was a little darker than what she was depicted in the original movie, but for those of you who don't know, the person who voiced Astrid in the original movie was a black woman. I only just found that out not long after the first trailer for this movie came out. And the fact that people are complaining that a much lighter skinned girl, not completely white, but a lighter skinned girl who doesn't have the blonde hair like the character does is playing Astrid, it's like, what is there to complain about? She portrays the character really well, in my opinion. Again, as long as they didn't shove a bunch of like politics down her throat, in her dialogue or whatever, then then that's fine. Which they didn't. She portrayed the character spot on, and when it comes to the dialect or the dialogue that her character had, it's just really ridiculous that so many people nitpick at these little details. But again, because this movie was a shot-for-shot remake, pretty much, and nothing was added, really, to me, that's kind of what Disney should really be doing from now on. Is that anytime they release a live-action adaptation of an animated movie, like the next one that's supposedly coming out is Moana, which only got released 10 years before its live-action counterpart. So, as long as they don't really change too much from the animated movie for the live-action Moana, because one of the major things that's the same is that the voice actor of Maui or whatever, Dwayne Johnson, is playing the same character in live action, which is exactly what they did with this movie, with How to Train Your Dragon, with Gerard Butler coming back to play Stoic the Vast in live action. Great move on Universal's part. So I feel like now that they're doing that with Moana, with having Dwayne Johnson come back, I have a feeling Dwayne Johnson will make sure that everything goes well with this live action adaptation of Moana. But with How to Train Your Dragon, I loved it. Sure, it had some things that could have been improved, but I still like the fact that it was a shot-for-shot remake. So for now, let me give you my rating of the movie. So for my rating of How to Train Your Dragon in live action, like I said, great thing that it was a shot-for-shot remake and nothing was really added, which really helped it, in my opinion. I'm going to give this movie a 4 out of 5. Yep, 4 out of 5 is my rating of this movie. Again, great flick, and I gotta admit, I kind of liked this movie better than I did Lilo and Stitch, even though Lilo and Stitch is the only other live-action adaptation of an animated film this year that I really enjoyed. So anyways, that's all for now, and I will see all you guys in the next video.